Oh, I'm recording. How exciting. Hi, my name's Graham Thompson. Let's see what Mark Steyn has to say, if I can work this properly.
Now, Dan had the brilliant notion
to dispatch to the Palace of Westminster Ben Leo from GB News and get Ben to ask MPs and indeed multiple ministers of the Crown whether women have penises. Watch the massed ranks of the political class flee in terror.
One quick question that Sir Keir Starmer has struggled with in recent days. Can women have penises?
You'll have to ask the Prime Minister first.
What does he think? Do you know?
Don't know.
Doesn't take into consideration how women feel about it and women's rights. Surely it's a simple answer that women can't have penises? We're just asking if women can have penises. Is it something you'd like to elaborate on?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, they can't, can they?
Can women have penises?
I'm not going...
I'm just asking people a simple question, whether women can have penises.
I'm not prepared to answer that because I don't know enough about the subject. But thanks very much for asking.
You don't know enough about men or women's simple biology? Can women have penises? Can women have penises? Sir, Ben from GB News, can women have penises?
And well might Mark Steyn look like that. That is the level of terror the LGBTQ lobby has struck in our members of Parliament. Not only are they too afraid to recognise what a woman is, they are too afraid to recognise what a paedophile is. Because if they did, they would never have passed their Paedophile Empowerment Act in 2019 for LGBTQ grooming in schools from kindergarten. And they would not be due to pass a second Paedophile Empowerment Act for what they call a conversion therapy ban, whose purpose is to lock anyone up who tries to undo the child grooming of the Paedophile Empowerment Act 1. Let me see if I can get to where I need to go now. Okay, all good. Right, so what you can see here, this is the follow-up email I sent to the letter I had sent to 200 MPs with the evidence of how obvious it is that the LGBTQ lobby has a paedophile agenda. Just stopping one of my cats crashing in on this. Now, if you want to, if you don't think I might have anything worthwhile saying while I'm reading this and after I've read it, then the link is in the description below, which will take you here. And as you can see, you've got the links there. You can read it yourself, either now or after you've heard me chundering on, and opening up the links with the evidence that I have. But if you want to stay with me and let me read it out to you, then let's get started. So, conversion therapy ban, further to my letter 21st of April, PDF attached. Here is the evidence that dare not speak its name, the obvious paedophile agenda of the LGBTQ lobby hiding in plain sight. LGBTQ is driven by genderqueer thinking. The principal ideologues behind gender ideology and queer theory all advocated for paedophilia. John Money, father of gender ideology, he was pro-paedophile and there was compelling reason to believe he was an active paedophile. This YouTube link here, this is time-stamped for a colleague who worked with him, saying that he knew, everyone knew, that he approved of sexual interactions between children and adults. Michael Foucault, I hope my exotic pronunciation is correct there, godfather of queer theory. He called for the age of consent to be brought down to infant age, and there is compelling evidence he was an active paedophile. This 6-minute video gives a good overview of the common thread of paedophile advocacy running through queer theory. Volkmar Seguch, the gender ideologue who coined the term cis, was a paedophile advocate. Another Redux link. Redux is a magazine run by two feminists, Genevieve Gluck and Anna Slatz, who used to work for Women. Their feminism, as far as I'm concerned, is as batty and toxic as any feminism. But these two feminists deserve a Pulitzer Prize for the journalism they do in exposing the paedophile thread that is running throughout LGBTQ. In a normal world, they would get the Pulitzer. They would get the Pulitzer Prize, but we live in a far from normal world. As much as I find their feminism as batty and toxic as any, I have donated to them because their work is that cutting edge. Let's continue. Robert Hogg, Monica Helms, a trans guy, and just to avoid any confusion, because this terminology is so confusing, a guy who pretends to be a woman. That's what trans guy means to me. The designer of the trans flag happens to have used exactly the same pastel shades of pink and blue that feature in paedophile symbols. Queering Primary Education. This was a seminar held in 2008 by one of Britain's leading providers of LGBTQ education, No Outsiders. The language on page 2 of the 3-page programme is clearly paedophile. Andrew Moffat, MBE, who designed the No Outsiders LGBTQ course, was a speaker. No Outsiders LGBTQ course. This video breaks down how Mr. Andrew Moffat's No Outsiders is designed to make children homosexual. Dr. Ellie Barnes. This is Dr. Barnes of Educate and Celebrate, openly declaring that the aim of LGBTQ education in schools is to smash heteronormativity. Our old friend Peter Tatchell. This go-to LGBTQ activist went route 1 in the 80s and 90s to abolish the age of consent. When that didn't work out, he went route 2, pursuing his paedophile agenda by stealth while reinventing himself as a human rights campaigner to cover his depravity with a mask of virtue a la Savile. Conversion therapy ban. Thankfully, Her Majesty's government has dropped the trans component of this ban. Nothing could be more oxymoronic than claiming conversion therapy is telling a groomed dysphoric child that biology is real. There's a reason why LGBTQ was keen to piggyback a conversion therapy ban for trans onto one for LGB. Trans is a major paedophile grooming tool to get into children's minds sexually. It is also a pathway to abolish the age of consent. If children can consent to change sex, they can be allowed to consent to have sex. The T facilitates the Q, that is code for P. LGB activism has always had a strong paedophile presence, but adding the Q makes LGBTQ paedophile by definition. LGB was never hijacked by paedophiles. The large paedophile presence from the outset is because paedophile offending rates among male homosexuals have always been proportionately far higher, and paedophilia from the Greeks and Romans has always been a large part of homosexual culture. Below is a study I put together in 2013 after His Grace the Archbishop of Canterbury announced he would swing the school gates of all COV schools wide open to Stonewall. For all the reasons stated in my letter 21st of April, as welcome as ditching the trans parties, going ahead with LGBTQ's demand for a blanket ban on LGB conversion therapy would very much be a paedophile empowerment act. An LGB conversion therapy ban would stop the harm being done to our children in schools with compulsory LGBTQ education being undone, as I mentioned at the start. LGB Alliance UK is on board with LGBTQ's demand for a blanket LGB conversion therapy ban. Drawing the line at chemical and surgical mutilation of children does not preclude a paedophile agenda. At a minimum, LGB Alliance UK is prepared to disregard child safeguarding to promote normalisation of homosexuality in schools. LGB Alliance Australia's opposition to the conversion therapy ban in Victoria was very different. This is from their submission document. LGB Alliance Australia does agree that objectively harmful coercive practices designed to change a person's sexual orientation should be banned. No one opposing an LGB conversion therapy ban would disagree with that, as counselling and prayer for those who seek it would in no way come under that. It would, though, come under the hazing hysteria of this letter to Her Majesty's government, signed by such LGBTQ luminaries as Mr. Peter Tatchell. Any form of counselling or persuading someone to change their sexual orientation or behaviour so as to conform with a heteronormative lifestyle or their gender identity should be illegal, no matter the reason, religious or otherwise, whatever the person's age. Until you do, torture will continue to take place on British soil. What LGBA Australia describe as objectively harmful and coercive is already covered by existing law. Please don't let yourselves be bounced into another paedophile empowerment act by the hate and hysteria of Stonewall and partners. Whatever misgivings one may or may not have about Clause 28, it stopped the paedophile agenda in schools dead in its tracks. We need another law that will do the same. So, as I said at the start, there's a link to this follow-up email to the letter I sent to the 200 MPs, and you can look at the links yourselves. They're all time-stamped where necessary. And if after reviewing that evidence you conclude that there is indeed an obvious paedophile agenda behind LGBTQ, I hope that you too will join me in what I have done to write to your MP and any other MPs you can think of who it would be useful to write to urge them to demand of Her Majesty's government they do not defile the Queen's speech by putting a conversion therapy ban in as a bill to be enacted in Parliament. It is pure evil. I'm sure that when you go through that link evidence to back up what I've been saying, you will see that LGBTQ, there is an ideological lineage of paedophilia running right through it. And any parliamentarians that pass LGBTQ legislation for child grooming and for locking up LGBTQ opponents has no excuse. That is criminal culpability at its height. I've been a Christian for nearly 40 years, and a really good question to ask is, where on earth is the church in all of this? Why has the church not declared a national emergency with legislation like child grooming having been passed in 2019, and this further legislation to lock up opponents of LGBTQ, to empower child predators to lock up child protectors? Where is the outcry from the church? Well, there's a very simple reason for why there is next to no outcry. And that simple reason is the church is not willing to suffer for Christ. In the last few centuries, the church in the West has had a very comfortable life. And now that Britain and the West has fallen away from faith and the gates of hell have been opened and Satan's minions are running amok, the church does not want to end its comfortable life by opposing evil. It wants to acquiesce with it as long as it can so that it doesn't incur persecution. The church today is probably the best argument for atheism that there is. I never came to faith through the church, and I have remained in faith in spite of the church. I do not worship Christians, I worship Jesus Christ, and I will serve my Lord and Saviour by opposing this naked paedophile evil with all I've got, and by God's grace with what I haven't got. This paedophile evil needs to be sent back to the hellhole it came from. If you are afraid of facing persecution by taking a stand against it, by even writing to your MP to stop it, then you will be on the wrong side of justice, because without you, without me, justice is going to triumph. All that remains to be seen is whether you or I will be sharing in that triumph of justice, or whether we will be facing justice. Go with justice. Do not walk with paedophiles, walk with the angels. Get your own letter to your MP, get your own email to your MP, and let's stand against this blatant paedophile evil.
And there's another country I've heard of long ago, most dear to them that love